Do not check the recordings of half my speech. All right. Okay, where to go? What go?
Yeah, you need to
Zoom
needs
just
to
popped
update
up.
their Wi-Fi. You need to update the Wi-Fi. Reset their battery.
I feel like you're the only one that's having bad internet problems here.
I don't know why it's just freaking me.
It's just you, okay?
My phone should be fine.
No, mine just, well, I don't know if my internet's bad, but Zoom just disconnected. There we go. Oh, back.
Yeah, they need to reset the router because I had no freaking signal here. I'm on them all right now saying
There we
I
go.
have no signal whatsoever. Saying I have no freaking signal. The Wi-Fi was at its best at like 10 o'clock when nobody was on.
But I love can the folks online hear us?
Yep.
Well, real quick attendance. Last day on this sheet, I want to get a new sheet.
Good, just for after break.
Calvin. Patrick. There's some on there. Zachary. Let's see who all was in. Joseph is here.
I am.
Tom looks like he's online. Braden? Nope. And I do see Patrick on there. Braden, no. Jem is online.
Yep, I'm here.
Andrew? I don't think so. Didn't see him much. Let's see. Michael Lavoy? Anna? Will is here. Jake? I don't think I saw him. Michael Satoris is online. And Preston, I didn't see either. Let's see, how many times we can have Zoom reconnect?
Yeah, the internet is not doing so well this week at all.
Or the Wi-Fi privately.
Hello?
Hey, Tom.
Hey, I'm just doing a test because I'm using my laptop instead of my tablet.
Okay. I may have to move to a different computer because this one keeps dropping, but let's see if it'll go back.
I feel like just walked over to IT to like, do you fix the internet?
All right. So should be coming up with my screen, but it's being wicked sluggish. All right.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
Patrick has no microphone. All right, let's see how this works. So a couple of things we want to talk about today. One is, where we are. I put together a homework assignment for over the break.
What?
What? A homework assignment. Because I love you all, and I know you want to grow.
I don't think you're showing it much.
Well, it's,
That's not sharing the love.
well, sure it is.
That's love. I don't think I want it anymore.
All right. Let me go open the file. If I can get it to behave long enough. Come on, you can do it.
No.
Okay, so if we look in coursework, there is chapter 4 will be due after break. That's the majority of your homework, but I also threw in this Objects on Mars, which is a more freelance opportunity for you to put together a particular project. And what I've done is I've got a file on here. We'll find the document here. Save, open. So it's a fairly simple document. And the cool thing is I pulled this information off the internet. I just typed in rovers on Mars, found a NASA website that listed all the rovers on Mars. It had more information than I wanted, so I could do one of two things. I copy and paste it into an Excel spreadsheet, but I can also link the data directly. I did a combination of two, but all you have to do is work with this file, which is the information from what's online. But you can see if I went back to here, I just typed in rovers on Mars.
Do you hear that we lost our Mars rover?
Well, yeah. And was this the page? This was not the page. Well, shoot. And anyway, found a really nice page that had it just had a chart, a table. Of course, now I can't find it, but the cool thing is if you find a table, let's see, table. There we go. List of artifacts on, this is where I got it. So do you see how we've got a table built right into the middle of this page? And if I go up to the top of the page and grab the URL, the website, I'm going to copy that. Now I'm going to go back over to Excel. Now it's important for you folks to know how to add new sheets. So I just click the add sheet at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert, actually I'm going to do online table. Oh, come on. Yeah, I know. Get data from web. And I don't want to. Never mind. I won't show you now. Why is it? Because when I do it, I did it sitting at my desk and it went boop, 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 boop. And now I've got to remember where I went and found it all. Basically, we want to put in a insert online data from other sources from web. There we go. And it's going to pop up with a dialog box. Where do I want to get it from? I'm going to paste in that web address I had, which was Wikipedia list of artificial art objects. Now, this is the important part. You got to hit the advanced. And then we're going to go to the next. I was going to say, well, probably could have done basic. Connect. And it should ask us, so now we have as soon as it shows up, what you see over on the side here are all the things on that page that we can pick from. And you can click on them to get a preview. Well, that's a preview of not the list. That's the legend. That's, and you're just going to go through. As it turns out on this one, it's the very last thing, table of objects. And there it is, and you can see all the data. And so that's the one we're going to do. Click on it and hit load, and it will put it, right. Let me go back. That was just annoying. It was just where we were supposed to be. Somewhere. Control V. Okay.
I suppose it advanced.
Well, I'm just waiting to see if it gives us the same stuff. I wonder if I've got bad internet again. If this thing fails on me, I'll just slide over to the other computer. I just hate having my back to everybody. Everybody. There it goes. So we go from here. Load. I have no idea. Never mind. So I'm just going back. Here's the sheet. This is the same information. I just cleaned it up a little bit. And I'm going to shrink some of the columns just so we can get them all on one page there. So you should be able to see all the data, all the way from column A through column H. Well, shoot, I'm going to have to fix that. Columns G and H are supposed to be empty. Part of your directions are to fill those in. So there are, there's only, I think, a couple of rovers that are still running. We've got Mars Science Laboratory, and that was the Curiosity, but I want to say that's the one that just shut down, so they may not have updated this page. And the InSight Lander is the most recent one, and that's still running, which is why there's no days active listed.
It was the Opportunity that shut down. Okay.
Oh, that's right. It was Spirit and Opportunity. Curiosity is still running. Well, I remember, I don't know how old any of you were, but I remember when Spirit and Opportunity went up. And Opportunity is the one right here that has the record for running for 5,111 days. Now, when you get in here, one of the things you need to do is translate those days into years and days that it's been active. How would we calculate the number of years that you have out of 200,245?
Divided by 365 days.
Okay, so you could take F5 divided by 365, which gives you 6.15 years. So there's one thing that we can do with that.
Then you multiply the 6 years by 365, and then you subtract the remaining thing. Subtract that from.
So because we don't want 6.15, we're going to do something called round down that number. So it's going to, oops, sorry. And round down wants to know how many digits, and you can always, so here's a useful thing. I'm using this rundown feature. Notice if I go down right below it, there is a highlighted, come on, catch up.
14.
You know what, let me go to a different computer because this thing's crashing and burning.
Crash and burn.
All right, so give me a second to open Excel again and all that fun stuff.
I almost thought that,
A little over 14 years.
I almost
the longest
thought
one
so.
it ran.
I almost thought Zoom crashed.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if it's Zoom over the internet or, because the computer I'm on now is hardwired in, and those are less temperamental in general. We apologize for this delay. So the directions in here are in the instruction set, so you'll be able to look at that. Come on, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. All right. Let's shrink that so you can see everything. Is that coming through a little better? So if I go over here to this, I'm going to do equals round down, and you'll notice as soon as I type in round, which hopefully you remember from your middle school math classes, and rounding is where you want to take it. But I want it to specifically round down to the next whole number, and that's where we take F. It's off the page. Come on here.
Here.
Sorry, the screen is giving me issues. There we go. So we want to round down F5 divided by 365, and I want it to be nothing on the, nothing past the decimal point. But the reason I wanted to show you that as well was, notice up here, if I click round down in the formula bar, right below it, I have the opportunity to open the help file for that function. Doesn't matter if it's sum, average, round down, statistical analysis, whatever the function is, there's a help file for it, and if I click that, it's going to pop open with a little help menu. And it'll tell you how to use it, usually gives you a couple of examples. So like here on this one where it says round down 3.14159, comma 3, and then you look at the answer and you'll see it kept 3 places to the right of the decimal point. So anyway, that's one of the most useful help functions, is just clicking in the formula, and then you'll see the help for that particular function. So that gives us our number of years, and then as Joseph said, well, now we can take the number of days, which was F5, and we can subtract the number of years, which was G5 times 365. So Viking 1 lander ran for 6 years and 55 days, not counting, and I didn't take into account leap years.
That's the only thing I didn't take into account. I don't know how to solve that part. Was it leap year?
Yep, so the way you solve for that,
But what year did it start? 76? Was that year a leap year? That's just how many leap years was there between it started and the end.
right,
There's a possibility of 2, so you can add on 2 days.
but you also don't know when in 76,
That's another good point.
because if it started in January, then you might have had a leap year, and if it started in March, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So the only way to solve that is to know the start date and the end date, which you could get because all that stuff's online.
But then you could already add 1 day on because you already know there's be at least 1 leap
You
year.
could, you know.
Because it's been 6 years,
Yeah.
so there's automatically 1 leap year.
Yep. So if you were to, let's say somebody gave you this project. I'm not adding this to this project, but somebody said, Will, I want you to be able to tell me exactly how many days each one was alive for. And you go on NASA, Wikipedia, wherever, and you would easily be able to find the day it landed and the last day of its transmission or operation. By putting those dates in, one of the functions that's available is how many days since January 1st, 1900. And it would count and give you a number. And then you do the same thing for the second date. And guess what? Now you just subtract those two and you'd end up with the number of days. So if I did,
The 5,111, that one. I've already got it down to 14 days and one if you use this, so we just use.
right, let's just say it was, start date, end date, and the start date was, we're just going to say 5/3/1976, and just for an example, we're going to say it ended on 9/12/1980. So there's 2 dates.
No.
Oops, sorry. And what I'm going to do is we're going to use, oops, sorry, equals. Actually, we could just use that one, and we could say the number of days between B4 and C4, and get the actual number of days. Although, because it's a negative number, I probably should have put C first. So but I need to know the dates for that to be effective. As you said, you could make some inferences, but without actual dates, you'll never have perfect numbers.
Yeah.
But let's just say something was active for 5 years. It had at least 1 leap year, and it might have had 2 leap years.
Exactly.
So if you were asked to come up with your best guess, then you would probably say, okay, 5 years, it's 1, and there's a reasonable likelihood that it would have been 2, but not a guarantee. Because, you figure, if it said it was active for 3 years.
5 years, then it wouldn't be guaranteed 2, because then 1 year, and then there's 4 years difference, there's at least 2. every 4 years.
right? But what if it landed the day after a leap, March 1st? 4 years later, you'd have your first leap year, but you'd have to go another 4 years before you got your next one. So you can make a reasonable guess, and then put a little footnote that says, hey, we think it's 2, but there's a lot of functions in Excel that allow you, if you have sufficient data. All I was saying is, if somebody gave you this and said, Joseph, I need you to go find the exact dates of when the Viking lander landed and when its mission ended. And I don't think they ever turn them off. They usually wait until they die. In the case of Opportunity, which went and went and went. I mean, it was the Energizer Bunny of Mars rovers. And its original mission was 90 days. So it went 100 times longer than its original mission specs. Everybody calls that a win. Of course, the funny thing is its instrument package that was on it was much less than something that they put up. What they put up with the InSight lander was so much more complete and modern because, well, it was, 15 years newer. And don't forget that even if it lands in 2004, it usually takes almost a year to get to Mars. And they can only launch it in a certain window because sometimes Mars is on the other side of the sun. And it's too far away to try to land. So they have to wait for Mars and Earth to be aligned, and then off they go. So that would be, one of your parts is to go in here and put those formulas in here. Another part is you need to go in and put a header, and it says add 2 lines at the top, 2 rows. So insert, and then grab all of that, do a merge and center, and type in, this is your title. Personally, I would then make it centered, I'd make it bigger, make it bold, do whatever it is you want. This particular homework assignment is designed for you to come up with a formatted, nice looking, easy to read chart using an Excel spreadsheet. One of the unfortunate things that you cannot do with Excel, which you can do with Word and you can do with PowerPoint, is you cannot put a printable background in Excel, which is really unusual because if I went to page layout and went to background and went to search and did Mars, picked one of these files, hit insert, download it, blah, 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 blah. I've got this really cool background image.
You create some crap.
Well, but you could adjust that. You can
Yeah.
change the fonts, make them bold, do all sorts of stuff.
Change it to a different color.
Right. But there's nothing you can do to print that. It will not be printed.
I want to print it.
It's not a feature that's enabled in Excel. I made sure.
Can I get to Microsoft Word?
Yes,
How would you do
So
that?
let's just say we try that.
Copy it all, take it to Microsoft Word, print it there.
Let's say we copy this section, copy, and then go over to Word. What you're going to get is you're going to get the data and not the.
Screenshot, done.
Oh, sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button. Control. No.
Go see, jeez.
Control copy. Control V. So you see, you get the chart, but you do not get the background. You could put it over here and then add a background to it. Word and PowerPoint, really friendly with putting backgrounds in. Excel, won't let you do it.
Why? Are they just dumb, or do they need to be smacked around a little bit, or?
Well, because you have to remember what I said at the beginning of this Excel section. Excel is not for presentations. Never was, never will be. Doesn't mean people don't use it that way. There's many an accountant who sit down and go through a presentation using their Excel spreadsheets. There's many a budget meeting. There's many a research group that gets together and shows it. Probably spouses get together and talk about their household spending, but it's not designed for displaying it. I can, even if I were to take this Excel spreadsheet, and I can't even save it as anything else and include that background. It's just not a feature. So why does it give you the option to give you a background? That I can't answer. I did go online to the Microsoft forums, confirmed that this is not a working piece in Excel. So let's undo
We're still in beta test.
Well, the other possibility would be to insert an image and do the exact same thing. Oops, sorry. Insert an online image. Mars. Same one. Insert. So what this is going to do, now this will print. Make it a little smaller. So if I was to go now and say File, Print, you get a print preview. There's the image on the folder. I mean on the file. But it will not do that if it's a background. And unfortunately, you cannot set it behind the text.
I want to call them up and tell them they're a bunch of dumb idiots.
Well, you just have to find a different way of doing it. You can embed this entire document in Word or in PowerPoint and play with the backgrounds, be happy as a clam. You just cannot do it in Excel. And so if we were in Word or PowerPoint, we would just do a right mouse click, and one of the options would be to arrange it in front of or behind, or we'd go up here to Format, and we'd have options to put it in front of or behind. We have the option to align, but there's nothing that allows us to put it behind or in front of anything. So it's always going to be in front of the text. So you can use it to provide a little bit of a highlight picture, but you cannot use it to go behind the data that you're working with. Any questions? No, I should look in the chat room. There's lots of chat. Let me look real quick. Tom had the question about due dates. Come on, wake up.
Huh?
Oh, you had the question about due dates. I'm just trying to look that up.
Yeah, because I know for this past Tuesday, we were assigned chapters 1 and 2 in Excel, correct? No, it was 2 and 3.
Yeah, just give me a second. I'm pretty sure it was 2 and 3. I'm just looking to see. Just trying to use one that doesn't show everything up on everybody's screen.
Mm.
Okay, so not everybody, but a lot of people have now finished 1, 2, and 3. So yes, 3 was due today.
Okay.
Although, for 2 and 3, we're both are accepting late work right now.
All right.
And then chapter 4 is due Tuesday after break. And then
this object Mars.
yeah, and this one really shouldn't be hard. If you spend more than a half an hour on it, you're probably putting too much time into it.
Okay.
But what I want you to do is, I'm going to take this picture. When you go to File, Print, look at this print preview. It should not look as dull and bland as this.
Okay.
It should take up the whole, as much of the page as you can without going off the page. You should make it the header better. You can put, background colors in the cells. You want cell, borders so that all the information is kept apart. I don't want everybody's to look the same. I just want them all to look, reasonably nice. So do I do this? Go highlight everything, add borders, because this is a top. Maybe I'm going to add color to that. Maybe I'm going to grab all of this text and make it a little bigger. And then now we can go and say File, Print, and see what it looks like. But see how now it goes off? Well, it doesn't quite go off the page. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to read. I still wouldn't be happy with it like that. But let's see if I can.
We can also, though, once we get done editing everything in in Excel, we can it's acceptable to bring it over in Word and give you a Word file so that we can put like a background or do extra like styles that we can't do in Excel.
If you do that, well, the goal is really to make the Excel spreadsheet as good as you can.
Okay.
If you want extra credit, I'll give you a few more points for taking that same information and embedding it.
Okay.
One of the first things you're going to want to do, though, is in Excel, you're going to want to make sure you turn this into a landscape picture, put the margins to narrow, and then start working with it. If this is a cell on your in your spreadsheet,
Can you zoom in?
Yeah.
binoculars, Tom. Come on. Any better?
Yeah, thank you.
So if we have a cell, this is a single cell. The default is you're going to see something like that. And as you start to expand stuff to try to make it fill a page, remember that you can, move it to the middle vertically. You can move it to the middle horizontally. You can increase the font size. You can bold it. Do all sorts of things to make it stand out. Or I can, give it a background color as well, as long as the background color and the font color are acceptable. So the end product, again, this is the only part I'm trying to ask you to manipulate the data, and I think I may have accidentally uploaded it with those formulas already in there, is to make sure that the days and the years are represented. Originally, the information off of NASA was just the total days, and then I wanted it to broken down into years and days. So the one thing that I want you to upload is that finished one-page Excel file. When I open it, I can see how you set the page up. So if it doesn't print on one page for me, it's because you didn't have it set up to print on one page. And you can do this by, actually going in like, let's make it just a little bit bigger and I'll show you. So if I go back out of here, and I'm just going to make all of the text even bigger. And I'm going to I'm just trying to force it to be large enough that it's going to go off of one screen, on one page. So print. You'll notice if you look down at the bottom here, it now says I'm looking at page 1 of 4. And I can use this arrow key to look at pages 2, 3, and 4. I'm not sure what's on 2, but, oh, I know what it is. So,
What's on 2?
but here was our chart. And we had a picture down here. And when it went to break it, it said, "Ooh, we need to break it here and here." So here's page 1, page 2, page 3, and page 4. Page 2 was empty, but it needed page 2 in order to get to 3 and 4. So that's why 2 was empty. It was below where the chart ended, but it wasn't below where the picture was. But since the picture was over on that side, it didn't show up in page 2. Now, on that print page, I'm going to go to custom scaling and say fit on one page. And now if you look down at the bottom, you'll see it's page 1 of 1. And that's where, this is kind of like the maxed out representation that Excel figured you could do on one page. Just make it look prettier than I did. I'm not going to show you everything.
Can you go again and show us how to do the days?
Okay. Let me shrink this down a little bit.
I saw the formula for years, but
Okay, so yeah, so number of years equals total days, which was what, like 2,245? So number 2,245 divided by 365, number of days in a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And that gave us 6.15 or whatever. Well, if I say, how many years old are you? You usually don't respond, well, I'm 6.15. Although my son did once.
Oh, how old am I?
Well-
18.9 something. I'm literally 3 days away from my birthday.
Yep.
There.
Well, when you go to the doctor and sometimes they say, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your pain rating?
Yeah.
And he literally thought about it. He was like 7 years old. And he looked at the doctor and said, about a 3.7. And it was the most hilarious thing I'd ever seen. So I don't know if the doctor knew what to do. So in order to get rid of this 0.15, we're going to use the function round down. And then we're going to put that into the 2245-365. And that's going to give us, in this case, 6. If I had just done round, it would have given us 6 as well. But what if this was 6.7? Just plain round would have given us, so round would have given us 7, and round down would have given us 6. One's rounding down to the next number, and round just by itself follows the same rules you probably learned in math class, was that if it's 0.5 or better, you round up, and if it's below 0.5, you round down. So round uses those same things. We always want to round down because we want to know the number of whole years in the date. So that's where we get the round down. Now we need to know, so out of that 2,245 days, 6 years of those we want to subtract. So we take the 2,245 and we subtract 6 times 365. So this is this number right here.
Oh, it's giving us the leftovers.
It's giving you the remainder.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You know, you could also have done, if this was 6.15, 39, whatever, you could have multiplied this by 365, and it should give you about the same number. Math, don't you love it? So questions about the homework? Both of the formulas are in the instructions in the homework. So, you know, I'm not asking you to come up with them on your own, but you should understand them.
Yeah, it's just remembering all those.
Yep. Well, and a good example here, and it doesn't do it in this one, is that, you know how you have some of the days active or 0?
Those didn't even make it.
Right. Well,
Maybe they made it for like a minute and then it's dead.
so here's a trivia question. When was the first mission to Mars? Not the first rover mission, but the first mission to Mars without going on the internet. Gosh.
I don't know, in the 70s sometime?
I bet you all there over there looking up right now.
Well, you know it's at least 1971 because there's missions to Mars right there. The very first mission to Mars was in 1961.
What'd they send?
Russia sent a fly, so the first missions were what they call flybys. Why do you suppose they call them flybys?
They didn't even attempt to land.
Right, or orbit. So they were just, their goal was to fly by Mars, take some pictures, and radio it back. After that came the orbitals. Then came the landers. And then finally came the rovers. And then next up is the Mark Watneys.
So did Russia send a flyby to Mars before we landed a guy on the moon?
Yes. Quite a long time before we landed somebody on the moon. You have to remember that in the early days of the space race, Russia was more advanced and did more missions than we ever did.
Oh, was it?
It wasn't until about the 1960s or early 70s.
8 years. They sent that like 8 years before us landing on the moon because I remember. So I looked up
Yes,
the Viking.
1969, yeah.
Well, no, because I looked up the Viking one land rover and stuff, see how long it was in active,
Yep.
what day it started landing and stuff.
Well, and
But it was the 7th anniversary of when we landed.
well, yeah. So because the Viking 1 lander, which was successful, landed on the moon. All it did was it had cameras, and it had an arm that came down, scooped up some dirt, brought it back in, and put it into a mass spectrometer, so it could see what kind of materials were on Mars.
It wasn't made of cheese.
It was not made of cheese. No, that was the moon.
I thought it was the moon.
Mars was made out of Mars bars.
I think they still make those anyways, Mars bars.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them anywhere in stores.
So anyway, but you literally had between 1961 and I haven't kept track. So on here you have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 rovers. And you could easily do the math and see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 of them were successful. The success rate of rovers on Mars is just above 50%. Not bad. If you look at between 1971 and 76, you had 5 years when the success rate was exactly 0.
Wow.
But that is exactly what you would expect on any new technology and venture. In 1971, they barely had computers that they could send up with those Mars 2, Mars 3, Mars 6 missions. So they were using very primitive, lightweight, probably radioactive decay powered power module computers and almost no ability to talk to it.
What did Voyager and Discovery have then?
Very simple computers. You know, the US was a little bit more advanced in computer technology. I don't know who was better at communications, but so you're looking at, from a computer standpoint, what they put up with the Viking 1 lander was absolutely primitive by today's standards. You would, if somebody said, hey, I'll put that on a watch for you, you'd look at them and say, I can buy that watch at Walmart for $3.95. You know, it just doesn't have the capacity that we have today. And that's in bandwidth, it's in reliability, and you have to remember, look at the size of those first Russian landers. They weighed 1,200 kilograms. They're trying to land something on Mars that weighs more than a car. And then you look at the smallest one, which was like the Spirit rover, or Opportunity, they both weighed 185 kilograms. That's a little more than the weight of a person, a big person. 2 smaller people, 2 medium-sized people, 3 small people, you know, whatever. You know, it's a lot different than trying to land an entire car onto another planet. And so just think about this. If I wanted to put a powerful computer on a rover that I'm going to land on Mars today, how much weight do you think you'd have to allocate for that? Come on, somebody. Well, think in terms of computers. I mean, what's the lightest weight, high-speed, good computer you could buy today? Okay, you're thinking inside the box. Think outside the box. If you went out and bought an i10 right now, phone, which weighs how many ounces?
Oh, maybe 3 ounces.
And yet, it will outpower anything that NASA sent up for the, you know, in the first 20, 30 years of its existence. Way outpower it. Mm-hmm. And it will run forever on a very low amount of electricity. Sorry, what?
Oh, nothing. I was just agreeing.
Right. So if you look back at those, you know, Mars 2, 1971. So 1971, they had to probably have, you know, 10 to 20 pounds of computer. And then they had to have all the power necessary to run that.
What they run it off of?
Yeah, well, a lot of the early ones used decayed radioactive material.
Okay.
And so what they would do is they take a particular decayed radioactive substance and they build a generator around it. So as that radioactive material gives off radiation, it's actually captured, and that's used to generate an electrical current. Most of the deep space satellites that we've sent off that are out by Pluto now, those all use that because you can't use solar power out there either. And it's useless to try to use lead acid batteries or nickel cadmium or lithium or whatever, because those operate very poorly at 200 degrees below zero. Trying to start your car at 200 degrees below zero with your battery, it doesn't work because
the only option they have is then radioactive or nuclear.
Yes, I mean, but it's a no moving part generator. It simply absorbs the energy being given off by that material, and using circuitry just turns it into electricity. I've never looked up the exact way that they do it, but I know they've been doing that for years. How many of you watched the Martian, the movie with Mark Watney got stranded on Mars?
No, I didn't.
Yep.
All right, and if you remember one of the scenes, he had to go out and locate the power supply, which was a very radioactive decay generator. And the reason, again, that we use these is they have no moving parts, so there's nothing to break down. They aren't really affected by temperature because the stuff decays regardless of what temperature it's at, although most of them generate some heat in their decay so that you can, they keeps them warm anyway. They can be easily designed to generate electricity. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. If I put a generator on Mars, there's no oxygen for the generator to use for the fuel combustion. I'd have to use an oxygen-enriched fuel, which I'd have to transport from Earth. I can use solar panels on Mars because it does get enough solar power. But they brought up their own power system that used radioactive decay, and that's kind of a standard. We don't get to do it at our houses because we're not allowed to have, uranium and plutonium sitting in our backyards, but NASA can do some of that. If we looked back to 1961, when people first started trying to go and do some of these flybys of Mars, the success rate was exactly 0. So for the first 10 years of sending missions to Mars, the success rate was none. Failed at launch, failed to reach Earth orbit, lost communication on transit to Mars, failed to achieve orbit around Mars, failed to send pictures, lost communication, no signal received. Who knows? But if you don't start there, you'll never get to the other end. And if you look at the last 10 years of missions to Mars, it's unusual for them to actually fail. Although we did have the European and Russian lander crashed on impact, but it did transmit the descent telemetry. So it got to tell everybody that it was going in, but it didn't land. The last unsuccessful US mission was the Beagle 2. Well, it listed as United Kingdom, but I'm pretty sure that was thought that was a UK and US co-mission. And in the case of the Beagle 2, it said landed safe. Which one was? Well, whichever.
Hey, Tom, you know what's crazy?
What?
I was watching a SciShow episode, and apparently we haven't been able to land anything on Mercury.
Hey,
What I
Why
find?
would we try to land on Mercury? It's a flaming ball of fire.
Basically, yes.
well, you know, but it's a dry heat. All right. Anyway, we got so sidetracked here. This is pathetic. But you could see that if you got started on this discussion, Excel would be a good way to track a bunch of this information. It would allow you to do the number crunching if you had the dates and, you know, and whatever statistics you were looking for. And like we said, if you had the, you know, date of landing, and then you had the date of failure, then you can just end up with a total days active. And you could do that, you know, mathematically. Obviously, if you've only got a half dozen to do, you could get your calculator out and do it. But what if you were tracking service life of 747s? And you went online and found out that there are 3,983 747s in operation, and somebody told you you need to track those and how long they survive for. You're not going to want to sit there and, you know, type in and look at the beginning date and the end date, get your calculator out, try to figure out how many days it survived. You'll be able to do that just using functions. As long as we are on the subject, you can also use if statements, which are pretty cool. On that chart, you'll notice that there are days active, right? Well, what if we did this? Equals if, let's see, the days active is what column? F? So if, let's see, so if F4 equals 0, what do you want to do if it's true and what do you want to do if it's false? So if it's true, then maybe I'm going to have it equal round down of, what was it? F4 divided by 365, comma 0. So that's what we put if it was true. That would get us 6 down in the column for the Viking lander. But if it's false, I can put in failed. And then close the whole thing out. Let me show you how that works. So if we go here, and we put in if F4 equals 0, then round down F4 divided by 365, comma 0. If not, put failed. Oh. Value of true, value of false. Oh, sorry, I have it backwards. I need to put the failed first. And then take it off. Okay. And now I'm going to just copy that and put it all the way down here. And we'll see what happens. So you can see any of the ones that actually were up there for years. I got the number of years it was going. Otherwise, I put failed. The only difference is, I'm going to get rid of this picture. Notice that this one down here, which has no number of days active, why is that one showing up as failed?
Because we don't know how many days it ran or how many days it will run.
Right, and so about the only thing I can imagine to do there would be to go find out the day that it started. Insight Lander. Watch this.
I've looked it up. I can't find it.
So we're going to go to. Oh, I hate this.
You can look it. I can't find it.
So Insight Lander. You can either go to Mars. Notice there's the launch date, but you can go to Wikipedia. I'm a fan of Wikipedia. So it was launched on May 5th and successfully landed on November 26th. So there's the date we're going to put. So March 26th, November 26th.
2 years.
Yep. And so right here, going to equal date. What's today's date?
The 14th.
There we go. Minus, what was it, 11/28?
I think so. 18.
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
I can't wait to be king.
You also put 19 and not 18. You got it.
Oh, right.
Because that makes us from the future.
Yep, no, I get you. So this is where, so today is return the current date formatted as a date. So that should work. The only thing, let me go. There it goes. So I don't know.
We're in the one above it.
Okay, so I know this is hard to see, but there's a difference between equals today. So it just sees this as a text. It sees this as a function. It's an empty function. There are no parameters that you can use with it. It's just going to give you today's date. But by doing that, by adding that to the end of it, it tells Excel that this, I want you to use the function, not the text. And my own bad, I didn't put it in there. So now I'm going to go back up, escape, beat this, and go in here and say equals today function minus 11/28/2018, and let's see what happens. Oh,
That is definitely not how many days it ran.
That's a good question. Let me try doing it backwards. Minus today. Nope. All right, that needs a little work, but we should be able to get the number of days in between those two dates. I know, what was it? Wasn't there days? Yep. So we want the number of days between that date and this date. Well, I haven't a clue why that's coming up with such a large number. Because if you just do today, that's going to give you 214. If we put in 11/28/2018, That gives you that, we have 2 dates now. Let me see what happens if I do it as a equals day. Oh, sorry, days, F19, F20. Yay, we got it right. So I had a bad days. I think it's just not accepting the fact that we're using today, which is a function inside the other function. It should work because I put functions inside functions all the time. But you'll notice it does work if I go down here, use just the today function, just put the date in, and then subtract one from the other. It works fine. And I'm going to copy this and link it right up to here by pasting the link there. And now, now it's showing up as 0 years because it no longer is a 0 number there. Any questions on that stuff? I know we kind of been meandering around today. Questions on the homework?
Why? Why do we need it?
So that when you were asked, William, what's your favorite hobby?
Jumping off bridges.
Watching movies.
Watching movies.
I'd rather do that than this homework.
So you're going to get hired by
jumping off the bridge.
You're going to get hired by Netflix, maybe Vudu, to work on their movie database. At the base of all databases is spreadsheets. And everything you see on the Netflix pages, the Vudu pages, whatever, all of that is coming out of a spreadsheet. The links to the movie, the different servers that you can pull it down off of. Have you ever gone to a download site and it says which server do you want to pull it from? And you get a list of mirrors?
Yeah.
Right, so all of that's in Netflix, and it's going to say, okay, where's Will's location? Where's the closest server that has capacity? Let's link those two, stream the movie that you requested, and out it goes. How long is the movie? What are the genres that it belongs to? Is it included in your subscription? Have you watched it before so that we can show it in the already watched to watch it again category? All of that stuff, that's all kept in spreadsheets. It may not look like this spreadsheet because at the server level, they don't look like Excel. They look like really simple comma or tab delineated files because those are the sleekest, cleanest things you can do. Questions? Anybody in the peanut gallery? I don't even know why they call it the peanut gallery, but it's probably where the poor folks sit and eat peanuts instead of down on the floor. I have no idea. All I know is I grew up with one. But
I'm good.
What, Tom?
I said I'm good.
Okay. Well then, you've got your homework. It's chapter 4. And this assignment that we did with this, make it into a nice, cute, presentable Excel file. As Tom said, if you want to turn it into either a PowerPoint slide or a Word page, you can do that, and I'll give you a couple extra points for that.
That's what it is? Just this thing here? That's
it. That's the extra homework. I'm not making it extra credit, but it's an extra piece of homework you need to work on. Because what I want to see you do is create something that has your input on it, not just following the book that says do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. I want to see you change that spreadsheet into something that looks good.
That already looks good. It already looks good.
Well, Will, when you turn that in, I'll give myself credit. How's that? Okay, so we'll see you on Tuesday. Have a a week from Tuesday. Have a great vacation.
All right, logging off, Captain.
I put it off until.
Okay, Scotty.
Put it off until last minute.
Tom, I want to get some money this vacation.
Okay.
I'm out. You wanna send me that, Tom?
No.
Send it to me?
No.
What?
You wanna see what you've done so I don't have to do it as much?
Well, the beginning file is on the internet.
Internet.
I'm going home.
I'm going to bed. I was feasted.